Hello and welcome to the Sound on Sound podcast about electronic music and all things synth. I'm Caro C, and in this episode we're talking to Sam Battle, better known as Look Mum No Computer. And yes, he is of the digital age but prefers to keep it analogue. Sam is a maker, inventor and musician inspired by 80s pop, and he is certainly carving out his own path with almost 500,000 YouTube subscribers and a solid Patreon following. He's even set up a museum in Ramsgate in Kent in the south of England, where you can get your hands on his inventions alongside other experimental and obsolete science and music technologies. It was so much fun to hear about his somewhat unique inventions and creative approach. To get us started, here's a sample of the Furby organ. Thank you very much for chatting to us today, Look Mum No Computer, aka Sam.
Thank you very much, Cara. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you today.
Excellent. Loads of amazing work that you're doing that I can't wait to unpack a bit. I guess we're going to have to start with you defining yourself and what you would describe yourself as what you do.
I'm not sure. I guess I am a musician, tinkerer. It's a very strange thing. I suppose when you become like trying to get along in the creative kind of world nowadays, you try and cover as many things as you can, and at some point you look back and go, what do I describe myself at a dinner party? And I just don't know. I don't know what I would. I haven't been to a dinner party recently.
You're an inventor.
I don't know because I'm not sure.
From what I gather, you're an inventor, you're a maker, you're a musician, definitely. Because I was thinking about the fact that it is more analog and you're doing it all on the fly. I started off using hardware and I've now gone more digital. But in a sense, there's a different there's more physical musicality, isn't there?
Yep. I mean, I do a bit of both, to be honest, because I think the whole going to the physical realm quite a lot was probably started fully. I mean, I was messing around with it quite a bit beforehand, but I just got sort of sick of a band that I was in previously. We were touring with Ableton and stuff. And just a few times, there was just no reason why it wouldn't work. And there was no way to fix it because it was on a computer and we were just getting annoyed and it was all having to boot it up and all that stuff. And I just got utterly sick of the idea of having to rely on something like that. So I sort of moved out of it. And having used Logic for many years, I felt like I needed to figure out my sound in other means.
Yeah. Sort of find your sound world in beyond the digital dependency.
Yes. Yeah.
And how did that come about then? How did you start to explore more hardware?
Well, regarding the hardware, it all came from a DIY kind of standpoint of when I started looking at hardware and stuff. I couldn't really afford much anything, to be honest. So I was I started with DIY stuff when I think I was probably like. I mean, I was playing around with electronics when I was a kid, but then I built a guitar pedal in, I think year 10. I don't know what year that is, age that is. That's
about
like
15.
15. And I was in the library. I remember I took a book that was like a Queen biography. I read it and I think they got it wrong because I don't think this is right after looking at it, but it said John Deacon made Brian May a Dallas Rangemaster copy, which is a treble boosting pedal. I was like, that's cool. Maybe if I build one of those, I can sound like Brian May. I built it. It took 2 months because I didn't know anything. Like at that time, there wasn't a massive amount of. I didn't know where to look on the internet. Nobody was able to help because nobody else knew around me or anything. My dad was nice enough to drive me to the electronics shop. I picked up a load of things. I got it wrong. Yeah, it took me 2 months. But the second I turned it on, there was that magical sensation of like being like, holy moly, this works. I mean, it sounds absolutely rubbish and I don't think it's supposed to sound like that, but it works. And that is so cool. And that feeling of actually making something. At this time, I think I only had like I don't think I had a pedal. I didn't have any other pedals. I just had a guitar, an amplifier. The idea of building a pedal, because for some reason I didn't even know that you could get pedals. I didn't know they existed, like you could buy them at the shops. It was a bit stupid. This was at the point where I was recording onto Logic, and I didn't know that there was like plugins on Logic, so there was like no synths and stuff. And at that time I didn't even know what synths were, to be honest. I saw keyboards. I didn't know. You know, like sometimes people, it's weird. Now I think the last 5 years, maybe it's become a little bit more of a main thing for people, for the punter to potentially see. Like the 2000s, probably a lot of people forgot even they were a main thing. It was just like, oh, the electronic sounds, like the sampler in Slipknot or something. It's like, what do they do? Wooka, wooka, wooka. It's I'm not really sure. So yeah, and I just didn't have a clue what any of it was. I just kept on playing guitars and playing Logic, and then somebody one day went on my Logic and opened up this tab and then just loaded a synth thing and they played it on the keyboard. I was like, what are you doing? That's amazing. And at that time, I'd been using like Logic as a tape recorder kind of style thing for 4 or 5 years. And it just went, well, boom. Synths were, then synths happened. And after a while, I felt like I needed to mix my electronics love for electronics with synthesizers and stuff. At that time, I think I kind of figured out quite quickly on that I didn't like plug-in sounds, purely because all of the presets, they all sound too there's too much stuff going on. Like, I hate it. Like when, you click on a preset and it's like all of the delays are loaded, everything's loaded. And it also, when you push your finger down, it automatically sounds like key gen music. It's like, so the only ever Logic plugin I ever really kind of found myself enjoying and stuff was actually the GarageBand Analogue Mono, which was just like, I think it was like just a line of the controls on an analog mono synth, but on the computer, and that was the closest that I got to feeling like the sound that I wanted, because it was just simple and it just didn't have any fluff, and you just could adjust it. So quite quickly on, I didn't really vibe with presets because it sounded like the stuff that I didn't like on the radio.
And so at which point did you sort of start to build? Was it synths you build first, or was it drum machines?
Yeah. So I was, and then at that time, me and my friend decided to try a circuit bending, because somebody at college was just showed us, there was a TV program and it was like, oh, circuit bend. I was like, whoa, what is that? So we bought some secondhand toys from the charity shop, broke them. And then after that, it started working. He got bored of it. I just kept on trying it. And then I got a Game Boy and figured out that you could make music on the Game Boy. I was like, well, this is mad. You can make music. It sounds way better than, it sounds more like, there's more like raw kind of sound to it than on the things that I was messing around with Logic. It just sounded a bit more, I don't know. It was just a decision that I was like, it just sounds nicer. And it's like, it's not that it sounds nicer, but it sounded worse. But I like it sounding worse. I don't like nice sounds.
yeah. There's a kind of visceral edge to a couple of your videos, like live videos that I've seen that I really love, and that's all the analog noise, isn't it? Basically.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of analog noise and stuff coming from like liking full bands and stuff, band performances. There's another element which is I'll get to with the modular synthesis stuff. It feels like, even though it's, you're playing it through the electronic stuff, it feels like a live band is playing in your face. It sounds like a live band is playing in your face purely because it sounds worse, but in a visceral kind of manner. And when it all sounds too prim and proper, and it's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, and it's that thing of, it's all the harmonics are clashing and stuff like that, aren't they? Which makes it feel like there's more of a collective thing going on.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like you watch a band, like, a live performance of it, and it's just a bit rough around the edges, and it's very hard to simulate that. I mean, it probably is possible, but it's just a bit more of quite a faff in the computer realm, I think. After that, well, I found on eBay there was a broken Korg MS-10. And at this point, I didn't even know that synthesizers existed out of the computer. I thought it was like, oh, there's a Game Boy that does it. And I was like, I wonder if there's any like real versions of these. And I basically, I don't really look on the internet. I don't really watch TV or films or anything. I think I've only made it through about 3 or 4 films fully. But like, I found a broken Korg MS-10. After about 6 months, I managed to fix it. Before that, I didn't even, like, the envelope generator wasn't working, so I was just playing with it without an envelope generator. It was fine. I managed to come up with some good riffs that I've kept throughout, that I've tried to compose songs around. So I got that kind of sound going. And after a while, it's that sort of built into finally finding on the internet that synthesizers and modular synthesizers existed, building things, messing around with circuits, and sort of somewhat coming to a point where I think in 2013, 2014, maybe, I was like, I'm going to try and make the full sound and stuff going out of electronics that I've built, well, out of real electronics fully. So everything's there and I don't need to go on the computer and then get sidetracked and go on, I don't know, the internet looking at it on YouTube or something. And that was like the aim, and it sort of kind of built into, I didn't even intend it potentially, just to sounding, the way I wanted it to sound. Coming from songwriting in a rather pop kind of stance, like I did a couple of years of solid songwriting sessions for other people, and that made me sick of Logic, I've got to say. The idea of having too many sounds at your disposal, I find, personally, not from, I'm more of a composition kind of person than a soundscape kind of person. I've tried to get a soundscape that I like and stick to it. But I find that, like, if you have too many at your disposal, then you can't focus on the composition. Sometimes, that's for me. Maybe other people have found the magic method. But when a band is playing in a rehearsal room, they don't have a million sounds. You know, they've got the drums. The drums are like that sound. The bass, maybe a couple of pedals, but that's 3 bass sounds, 4 or 5 guitar sounds, and that's about it. And then you focus on the composition. You focus on what the song is doing. And I find that is why I went to modular synthesizers, not because there's a unlimited amount of sounds and an unlimited possibilities. It's because it's extremely limited, and you can curate your limited world to make the songs you want.
Ever since you were a child, we've been dreaming and dreaming in style. Ever since you were a child, we've been dreaming and dreaming in style. Ever since you were a child, we've been dreaming and dreaming.
So tell us more about your explorations and experience with the modular stuff.
Modular stuff, well, it's interesting, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I talk to some people. They're like, "What? Why you do that?" I don't know why I do that. I've got to be honest. I started doing it with DIY, and it was taking a really long time to learn it all. And I got kind of sick, and I was like, "Oh, I wish I could afford some Eurorack." I sold some things, I think, and I bought a little system for a little bit. And amazingly enough, like, I couldn't get the sounds that I wanted out of it, And after a while, I realized that, like, I need to sort of some of the modules were good. And in fact, a couple of the dope for modules, I like this, I can't replicate this. So I took out the panel, pulled the panel off and rewired it behind my one, just because because mine is a different size to Eurorack. It's 20 centimeters tall and big jacks. And I just found that I had to build it. And mine were worse, technically, than the Eurorack ones, which in some respects actually made it sound more like the way I wanted it to. Like the waveforms, I didn't realize, but a lot of the waveforms go through the 0 voltage, so it dips to minus and plus voltage. So you've got that that's what an oscillator should do. But unknowingly, when I was making mine, I made it so it only goes in positive voltage. But that means you get a very unsymmetrical kind of distortion, and I prefer it.
Yeah, and so you sell, don't you? Is it the Kosmo?
Yeah,
synth?
There's in 2019 I decided that my synth kept on breaking on tour. There was a few different times where it started to become kind of a thing when playing the gig. It's like, oh no, I've broken something. People thought I was so prepared for something to break that they thought it was part of the set, but every time it was something different broken, and it was just having to bypass it. And I realized that this is problematic, so I had to start designing them on circuit boards. And I figured whilst I'm doing that, I may as well share the journey so people can build their own similar machine from these findings. And people seem to enjoy it. It's quite good. And the only thing that breaks it now is probably moisture. And that's like, there's been a couple of times where there was this small gig and some guy, it was fine. They were putting beers on top of the synth whilst I was playing, which is fine. Like, I'd let them stack it. But then somebody walked into the synth and it all fell down. And the bottom power supply on the bottom one broke. And I had to have it fit. I had to fix it for the next day. But it's lucky I was able to fix it because I had a bunch of spare, big old bag of, that's the sound of it. It went, just loads of random electronics. But I'm not particularly precious with things, and that's why I really can't buy new things, because the value that I own it goes like that. Make sure not to buy pristine condition things, as you could tell with the microphone.
That's amazing when you make stuff, but just don't give you, nobody should give you new stuff. Just give you broken stuff and you'll make it work.
Of course, yeah. Broken stuff, because it can work, and then, if it gets a bit dented, then it's okay.
Yeah, so talking of broken things, you've got a newish project called, what is it, the museum?
This museum is not obsolete.
That's it, yeah, tell us about that.
So this museum is not obsolete, is a museum full of stuff. And basically, I've been doing YouTube videos. It's weird, like, ended up doing YouTube videos. It wasn't even something I was focusing on. I just, end of 2016, I started doing videos about what I was making and stuff. And I just somehow ended up doing more, and it sort of worked. But over that amount of time, I ended up with a lot of stuff to do videos on. There was a point where I was like, I should start trying to do videos on weird, curious old things as well as the things that I build. So I just end up with a load of stuff, and it was costing a load of money to store all of this stuff because I wanted to keep it just in case somebody asked, can I see this thing? It's like, sure, because if I bought and then sold it, I wouldn't. So I just ended up with loads of stuff, and it ended up costing loads of money to store it. And I did some maths, and it was cheaper to set up a museum. So I've got a museum full of stuff that I've built and full of old stuff. There's a whole load of things. There's the machines that I built, the 1000 Oscillator Megadrone, Furby organ, that doesn't work right now. I've got to fix it. Game Boy Mega Machine. There's an owl organ made from a load of owls that's built by an nervous squirrel. But then there's a load of old things like I've got a full telephone exchange. So that's a bit of a dangerous thing. But the plan is that calls up all of the synthesizers and music making devices in the building. But that's a big wiring job.
Wow, where is it then? Where is this museum?
So this museum is in Ramsgate, which is a coastal town. You come for the seaside. It's next to Margate. And funnily enough, we are next to the Micro Museum, which is an old computer museum. So the plan is you come along, look at all the old computers, look at all the old musical and scientific equipment and stuff over here, and go and see the sea and have some fish and chips maybe.
Yeah, sounds ace. Fantastic. And so talking about some of your inventions, there's lots that I'd love to talk about. I think one of your most recent ones is an installation that's coming up, an interactive one that's around Teletubbies.
Yeah, Teletubbies. So I decided to start collecting this specific type of Teletubby a couple of years ago. It's a 1990s specific Teletubby that does this weird dance. It's very fluid. It's a lovely dance. It's like, and it's so strange. And I was like, I'm going to try and find as many of these as I can. Why not? Nobody else was. But this is another thing. I love finding things that nobody else wants. It's like, why would you want it? So I'll find a use for it. And I figured by the time I have enough, I'll have an idea. And it was just like, a big stadium cascading wave of all of these Teletubbies going down. It's not super musical, but they all sing at the same time. However, they all sing out of sync. So it's just going to be an unheavenly noise of Teletubbies just going. It'll be done in a week or two. It's going to be equally awful, but super awful. I mean,
and that's going to be an installation that the public can come along and play. It would be indoors.
First, it's going to be outdoors.
Wow.
In the Ramsgate Festival of Sound. It's going to be open for 5 days. There's a good chance it'll get broken, but that's just the way the world works. And then after that, I'm going to set it up down the hallway of the museum so people can just play all of them. It's about, I've got 50 of these Teletubbies, but it's funny, somebody said, you don't hear this statement very often. It's like, but I'm going to find the 40 best Teletubbies of the pile.
Yeah, good. Yeah. No, that is it's an important mission in life.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about how these are being triggered then, both by the person using them as well as how you're getting it all to work, getting them to do their moves?
Of course. So some people may think this is quite a Luddite kind of point of view, but I feel like I'm not a Luddite. I'm just trying to find alternatives towards the modern bloated digital world, because the digital world is really built on top of stuff and it's just so bloated. I mean, it's being reworked at the minute, like with all of the progressions with other technology. But right now we're in a dangerous world where, computers just stop working for no reason. And it's not down to a physical thing, which is relatively easy to fix. Like you have a look in, have a test around. Or it's like, oh, it's that chip gone. It's like, what is wrong with it? It's just so bloated. But this is why I'm not using microprocessors for something like this. So the machine is basically, you push a button and that sends a signal down this cascading run of relays. Relays are electromechanical switches, and these are triggered by things called serial to parallel shift registers. And these things, basically, they're made to transfer serial data into parallel data, but the parallel data is relays. And you push the button, and it's a load of logic and relays that just turn the Teletubbies on one by one. And as it goes along, it's a really simple idea, but it's just very big multiplication. It's much like the 1000 Oscillator Megadrone, which is a simple idea, but a big multiplication of that idea. So the 1000 Oscillator Megadrone is like a 4 meter wide, 3 meter tall wall. I know it's pretty grotesque. A wall of 1,000 oscillators. I don't know why I built it. I was just like, I've built 100 Oscillator Megadrone. What does 1,000 sound like? Because 100 wasn't enough.
And so what does 1,000 sound like? Sounds
nearly the same as 100. No, it's sort of, I find the most amazing thing about it is the reason the output is very low on all of the oscillators, just because when they get added together, the volume just gets incredibly high, much higher than you'd think. Like I'm not much of a mathematician. I'm more of a
There's something additive
tinkerer.
Going on there.
Yeah. It's a very additive thing, and it just keeps on going up. I've got this button controller, and you could just put your whole arm over it like that, boom, and it plays all of them. And just you can test how much louder it gets every 100 oscillators you add. It's quite preposterous.
Wow. And so was that just the same little circuit, if you like, that you just built and soldered 1,000 times?
Yep. I did it in the first lockdown. It took I don't know. It was very boring, but it's just like it's just a job. In the end of the day, you've just got to get it done. It's like working. It's like sort of a factory. Like I think I did all of the soldering. Took me about a month of just about 8 hours of soldering a day, maybe.
So yeah, that's the 1000 oscillator beast. And let's talk about the Crystal Palace, because obviously my work through Delia Derbyshire Day in the Radiophonic Workshop, I remember Dick Mills, Delia's assistant, making the Doctor Who theme, and obviously he worked for the Radiophonic Workshop himself, and him telling me about this Crystal Palace and how it was he'd had sort of a guide document that went with it. Basically the document is titled Necessity is the Mother of Invention, and so telling us about Dave Young's Crystal Palace, which is made from, is it a fountain pen, a tobacco tin?
Yeah.
So everything in there is repurposed. You made your own version, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a little bit of a different, because that his is more capacitance, the way it spins around and reads it. But basically, Heimbach messaged me one day and said, "Have you seen this?" I was like, no, it looks cool. I looked at the picture. He said, you should make it. And then he was like, I've got an idea now, you're making it. He's doing a plug-in, and I did that. And then, so what happened was I looked at the picture once, and I decided not to look at it or research it and just build what I thought it was. I didn't even know what it did at the time. Luckily, the thing that I built was nearly sort of what it did. My girlfriend's an academic, and I drive her crazy. She's like, where was the research? You got to research everything. So I built it. I just was sitting there. I was like, how should I build this? Because I thought, when I looked at the picture of it, I thought it was more of a jukebox switch, where it was what I call a slip ring, where there's a bit of metal that spins on top of this disc and flicks between a different, like a spinning disc of switches. So but the problem with that is it would have been like really solid changes, like a bit of beep boop bap boop beep boop bap boop, which probably at times might have been funky, but I just used 2 guitar pickups to start with. So one was acting as a speaker, one was acting as a microphone. Listen, that works. And then I used basically ferrite inductors, which are basically just single guitar tape pickup things. You can use them for a load of things, multiplying voltages, filters and things like that. Well, you can use that and then you can listen. But then I found that it was listening too wide of a field. Tape head listens in a really limited field. So I got a tape head for the microphone and then a load of these inductors around in a circle and just plumped it together, it was a really messy design. I designed it in a real rush. It took about a day and a half to actually figure out, but it was cool. It turned out really well. If I did it again, I'd do it way differently, but that's just what you do. It'll probably look a lot more like the Crystal Palace if I built it again.
Yeah, and so the original was like a capacitive sequencer, wasn't it? So
yeah,
was it? It was to do the faders and things like that, as opposed to how we would describe a sequencer now. But so what was yours doing the same function? How were you able to use it? Because I know you did a kind of live performance with it, didn't you?
Yeah, well, actually, the application was the same, which I'm quite relieved about. So the way mine went in was there was every single of these the speakers, electromagnetic speakers, had an input, and they were cascaded in such a way that you could only plug 2 signals in if you wanted to. But it actually worked the same as the Crystal Palace. So instead of a sequencer nowadays where it would be running on more like control voltages, and that's controlling something like an oscillator or something, it's more like a crossfader that crossfades between different sounds. Theirs uses capacitance, mine used electromagnetism, but they actually ended up being the same in application.
Yeah. And so apart from the Teletubbies project, what else have you got? What else are you building or destroying or making at the moment?
There's a lot of things. There's this machine that I've been building for the last couple of years. It's driving me mad because it's just way more complicated than I thought it was going to be, called the Game Boy Mega Machine, which is turning 50 Game Boys into a digital analog hybrid polyphonic synthesizer. And it's a nightmare. But the other day I put in 2 stereo Leslie speakers underneath. Leslie speakers are the rotating speakers. And I need to finish it. That's one thing. There's a load of things that I need to finish. Telephone exchanges, need to wire it up to the internet so people can call in here and then listen to whatever synthesizer or sound making device they want to listen to. But I tend to try and build at least a couple of things every week. So who knows?
Every week. Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty stupid.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. So much energy. So where are you at kind of musically at the moment then? What's exciting you in terms of what you can make or what you want to make musically?
Well, right now I'm working on an album. Everything that I've been doing is EPs so far. And I've been sitting down and because I write my songs, I don't write my songs with synthesizers. I write my songs in the shower. So whatever sticks, whatever melodies and vocals and stuff remain with me longer than a week tend to turn into a song. So that's how I'm just doing that. I'm going through all of my whistles basically and turning them into songs. There's a new song out in about 2 weeks, and that's that. And usually I tend to write in a very 3 or 4 minute long song, and that's the kind of music I like. I've always been into that kind of stuff. Elvis Costello, Human League is probably my favorite kind of soundscape for music, and so that's what I'm doing. So I'm also writing songs as well.
And how do you use your voice then? Do you put is there loads of processing with that, or do you keep it quite raw and human, if you like?
I try and keep it quite raw and human, to be honest. Like the way it sets, I set up everything is just, it's like, I call my synth Kosmo. Kosmo's like the musicians and I'm like the singer, basically. It's a weird thing trying to mix my kind of taste of music with my kind of taste of technology. And I find that the YouTube videos, I try and make sounds and weird soundscapes and compositions for them that are different to the music that I would make personally. And I there's 2 areas of what I like to do, really. There's no rules in the end of the day.
So how do you like to record it then? Do you like to record it live, or do you do more sort of multi-tracking and arranging post-recording, if you like?
Yeah, I use a digital mixer that all of the synths go into, and every gig I record it and there's things that I make up at the show. In fact, a few of the last EP that I put out, songs-wise, are recordings from the gigs, but I just re-recorded the vocals because they sounded like dog poo. So usually it's just I perform it in a take, use the recorder as a tape machine, and then have to record the vocals over the top again. But usually that's as far as it goes. Like, so I just try and make sure it's all composed and sorted beforehand. And like, there's a few videos. For instance, the last song I put out, which is Youth 8500, I did a live version of a live video of the song, which is pretty much exactly how I recorded it for the recorded version.
Yeah. And then do you do all your mixing and mastering and stuff yourself, or do you have someone else? Do you send that to someone else?
It's different every time. So I'd send to somebody else purely because I don't really, I'm not very good at that. And it's funny, like with the mixing wise, I found that the less I try, the better it seems to turn out. I'm not sure. It's been obviously like sound on sound, the technical things, but it's a weird journey with like mixing and music and production and stuff. For instance, there's a song that I made with a guy called Barnes Courtney called Glitter and Gold, and I did this we recorded this as a songwriting session, just as a demo. I had a webcam microphone, USB, and this was using Logic but we literally used all manner of random rubbish. It took us 4 hours to do. They asked for the stems because I thought they were sending it to another producer to produce, and they ended up just mixing it and putting it out. And this thing on Spotify, it's like had 120 million listens and stuff like that. It's crazy. It's like, and it's the top one. It's like, that took us 5 hours. So there's no like real matchup between the thing. It's actually, I listen back to it, it's like, oh, it actually sounds pretty good. It's like, but we didn't try it all. Like literally, like the drums are all Tupperware boxes, and like a rototom that's the bass drum was a rototom. I just really detuned and stuff like that. It's like, how did that do that?
Sometimes that's, I think most bands that you've read about, almost, I'm thinking Simon Garfunkel, Beatles, all these different people, Nile Rodgers, they'll talk about, it's those moments where you capture, it is just the humanity and it's the raw energy, and you just get it out there and you just put it out there. Sometimes they are the ones that resonate more with people. Yeah. That you're right. There's a certain, it's finding your place and your balance in terms of the amount of production that you want to do and all the rest of it. So in terms of sort of, I know you're working with Patreon. How does that work for you? And how do you work that? Yeah,
well, I treat Patreon as somewhat of a job because that's what sort of it funds the machines. Everything that goes into Patreon basically gets spent on videos, and as the patrons been helping more and more, it just goes, the machines get a little bit more elaborate. So like usually like I pay my bills and like just home and stuff with songwriting and stuff, and then all of the machines and stuff and the museum is funded by Patreon. And I basically I do loads of live streams on there and stuff, and it's just people sign up for a subscription and they get sample packs, a video or a live stream every other day and stuff like that. It's just loads of random stuff, but it's been an amazing tool, I must be honest, and I'm extremely grateful for that situation, as it's made what I do, which doesn't make sense, and I haven't got a clue how the heck it happened, but what I do is a somewhat of a job. And it's amazing because like I wake up and I work from maybe 9 in the morning till probably 1 in the morning every single day. I don't do any holidays or anything, much to my girlfriend's dismay. I go to the pub a couple of times with my girlfriend, but I cannot do anything else but work. And I'm so grateful for having the opportunity, thankfully from support on Patreon, to be able to be allowed to do that.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think more than anything, if you have the line of work, I can relate to that in terms of you. Basically, it's amazing to be paid to be learning all the time, isn't it? Really, that's what you're doing. Yeah,
that is the biggest thing. Like learning is just it's the best thing to do with your time.
Brilliant, amazing. So if people want to find you on Patreon, how do they find you?
I mean, I usually link it on all of my videos and stuff, and if you'd look Mum No Computer on Patreon and stuff, and all that money basically goes into this museum, which has turned into a little bit of a money pit, but people are coming in and enjoying it, and hopefully it's over time it's going to be aiming to educate and inspire people, hopefully. Or just annoy them, I'm not sure.
It all has its place.
Yeah.
Thought-provoking and all that. Brilliant. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's really interesting to hear about your work.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been very enjoyable.
Thank you for listening, and be sure to check out the show notes for further information, as well as links and details of the other episodes in the electronic music series. And just before you go, let me point you to soundonsound.com/podcasts, where you can explore what's on our other channels. This has been a Caro C production for Sound on Sound.